Good morning, Safari Mack fans, and welcome back to Safari Mack in the Caribbean Sea as we continue our journey up to North America. I'm Safari Mack, your guide and host, helping you make connections to the wild. First of all, I like to give a big shout out and thanks to all of my subscribers and my supporters who continue to tune into my videos each week, as well as wish everybody a happy October. Now, especially now that we have entered the halfway point. So as of today, not much further from Halloween. But before we begin today's episode, I just want to also shout out to all the new viewers who are new to my channel. Welcome. If you haven't done so though, hit that like and subscribe button so that you can stay tuned for special announcements and updates as I continue my journey across the world. Check out my Facebook page so that you can check out special animal facts as well as news updates from either different conservation projects, zoos, and aquariums from all over the world, as well as special messaging. And finally, if there are people out there who have seen my videos and have questions about my series, or maybe they want to know something that maybe I didn't cover in my previous episode, please feel free to send me an email, which you will always find down in the description below. Now today, we are not focusing on an animal like we have done in the past, where last episode we discussed the octopus. Instead, I mentioned that I wanted to focus on a special habitat, specifically the coral reefs. For me, I've been lucky in my life to actually have seen a coral reef, even snorkel off of one, down near Cozumel Island in Mexico. But I really do not have the words to describe the coral reefs. Only one other person really can give this magnificent place justice. Jean-Michel Cousteau. He said it best when he starred in a seven-minute film back in the 2003 with the DVD release of Disney Pixar's Finding Nemo. This short was called Exploring the Reef. And he said it best. In his own words, and I quote, "The ocean. From above, the simple blanket of water, but below, a complex world full of color, life, and wonder. This is the coral reef, a timeless thing of beauty for all to enjoy." So if we're ready to discover more of this place's special secrets, let's get our diving gear ready and let's head under the waves. Let's start off with the family and the origins. Now, just like in my previous episode of the octopus, coral reefs have actually been around for millions and millions of years. How far back? Paleontologists think that they may have first appeared roughly around 500 million to 485 million years ago. So, this was before dinosaurs, birds, mammals, reptiles, even amphibians hadn't evolved yet. Instead, the world was a much different place, and corals were just starting to slowly take over from sponge reefs as well as microbial reefs, back to a time which was called the Ordovician period. So, now, what's special about coral is that coral isn't a rock, and it's certainly not a plant. It's actually an animal. So, they have a kind of polyp-like appearance, which you can often find in colonial settings or living in colonies. But they have been discovered in different parts all over the world, especially on the land, which further shows proof that at one point, our land was once covered by water or covered by the oceans. So thanks to this, we've been able to study this and confirm that these were ancient animals just as much as they are living today. But now, corals are part of an unusual family group called anthozoans, which are actually part of a bigger group of family called cnidarians. These often include sea pansies, anemones, and sea fans. So, over 6,000 species are known in this kind of family alone, and that's pretty incredible. Let's talk about how they make a strange but a beautiful home. So, It really is an amazing thing, the coral reefs. In fact, if you wanted to really compare a human habitat with ocean habitats or even natural habitats on the land, easily I can tell you that the coral reef would probably be like the cities of the sea, while the open ocean and other parts would probably be more like that of the countryside or desert-like setting, just mostly because of not a lot of marine life. But now, these cities are actually pretty small. Believe it or not, we know that if all the coral reefs in all of the world, which either are tropical as well as cold water settings, even deep water settings, if they were all gathered together to make one area, coral reefs combined would make an area almost half the size of the country of France. That's right. They occupy less than 0.1% of the world's ocean surface, but they do support around 25% of all marine life. So, as a result, creatures from all over come around to these places just looking for something to eat, as well as to make a home for themselves. And as a result, corals have uniquely evolved different appearances and adaptations. Now, as I've mentioned, they are a home for fish, crabs, sea worms, and other forms of marine life. The possibilities are endless. And so as a result, these fish and other groups gathered together to protect themselves. But now, especially from predators, but it's not always the big fish is eating the little fish on the reef. Sometimes these creatures actually will help each other out. Here I'll show an example. Now, first of all, I'm not talking about this giant guy, the grouper, but instead these tiny fish. These are called cleaner wrasse. So very similar to how crocodiles or alligators will open their jaws and allow birds to come and clean their teeth, these little fish actually will go to giant fish, or the giant fish will go to them. They'll open their mouths and they'll let these little guys in and clean their teeth, clean off the dead skin. In fact, in Japan, there are some places, some spas, that allow people to sit in a thing full of wrasse fish and let them kind of eat off dead skin off of their legs. Kind of cool and a little gross, but there's a bit of a relationship. They provide a cleaning service, the big fish doesn't eat them, as a form of respect. But let me get back to the coral reefs though. What's really amazing about these ecosystems? Coral only grows a few centimeters a year, and as a result, it's taken millions of years to get to where they are now. And although they are located in really nutrient-poor waters, the coral has actually learned to thrive because of it. But now, how have they done that? This is where we need to talk about their food supply. Now, first of all, as I mentioned, corals are animals, and some of these corals will actually stretch out their tentacles and will grab floating debris from either zooplankton, phytoplankton, and even dead animals. So like debris floating around, hey, food is food out in the open ocean. But now, not all corals are the same though. Now, some corals have actually developed a special relationship with a kind of algae called zooxanthellae. So here I'm going to try and explain the best. So zooxanthellae really are a kind of algae that lives in either water columns as plankton or symbiotically inside the tissue of other organisms. So these little guys need protection. So the corals that use zooxanthellae, they welcome them in to keep them safe, and in return, the zooxanthellae kind of gives them a little bit of food, oxygen, and allows them to help remove their waste. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's a little bit more that I would like to discuss, but be sure to join me in the next few minutes for part 2 of today's episode, the coral reefs. Here, unfortunately, I had to skip over both the influences in human culture as well as some wild things, because today I really want to discuss with all of you the importance of how these reefs are, as well as show the threats that they are currently facing and what we can do to save them. So be sure to join me for part 2 in just a few minutes. But until then, this is Safari Mack. I'll see you all out there.